Take it away.
Yeah. So welcome to the very first episode of Rowan and Pine. We are a folklore podcast started by two friends. My name is Neve and I live in Ireland, and I'm doing it with Emily. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Emily. I live in Chicago, Illinois, so a little far away from Ireland, but we're making it work.
So this is a fully remote Zoom podcast. We've actually never met in person, but we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. It's a true internet age friendship, I think, yeah?
For sure. Back when there were message boards, that's when we became friends.
Yeah. Are we aging ourselves there? If we're saying that it's like we met on a message board?
Probably.
Or people are like, these girls are on LiveJournal, I can smell it.
I was on LiveJournal, but that's not how we met.
I got a random email from LiveJournal the last day, and I was like, first of all, is that still alive? Like, is that a thing? Because I got like some sort of update, and I was like, second of all, I have no memory of that. I think I made one, and I just never used it, so.
I used mine like obsessively for the longest time, so I'm sure if it's still there, like every moment of my life was recorded on it, so that's exciting.
Oh. Yeah. At some point you might like gain access to it and be able to like go and see. Yeah, so back to we met on a message board. It's one of those like rekindled friendships over like the pandemic, so when you're reaching out to people that you maybe haven't spoken to properly in a long time, and that's sort of how we got speaking again.
Yeah.
Like, we've been following each other from afar all this time through various social media.
There was no big like breakup or anything. It wasn't like, I fucking hate you.
Now we're speaking to her again.
Right.
Oh, she's back.
No. And we share the same birthday, which I think is the coolest thing ever.
It is cool. I think it means that, like, used to be in January babies, which I think is, aside from any of the horoscope-y kind of stuff that you could get into, being born in January kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Because it's always cold. Yeah. Colder where you are, for a start. Because I didn't get snow for years when I was a kid, so, like, yeah, definitely Chicago cold would be a complete different.
And I grew up in Minnesota, which is even more cold.
So you did.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, it was like, what do you want to do for your birthday? Sit in the basement or go ice skating?
Yeah. And then when you get older, it's like, let's all go do something. Oh, nobody has any money. Okay, that's fine.
Right. Like,
so I think it's been character building for us, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we sort of have this shared interest in folklore and spooky things and nature and ancestral kind of stuff.
Yeah. Ghosts.
So it's been this thing where we sort of have shared little stories and articles to each other.
Yeah, we just started sending each other kind of like posts about stuff that we both found interesting. And then you were talking about how you wanted to do a podcast, and then I was talking about how I wanted to do one specifically about like folklore and kind of mystical things.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
You were the one that was like, no, let's actually do this, because I'm very good at saying, yeah, that sounds good, that sounds fun, and then like unless somebody actually gives me that little like poke. So full credit to Emily for making this happen. But yeah, like it's our first episode. We're gonna be doing different subjects, I think, throughout this. We have a little Google Doc that's a work in progress with different ideas that we have. We thought like a good place to start was a place that I personally would have some anecdotes and personal stories about, which I'll share later on in the show. Are we calling it a show? Yeah.
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 It's our show.
Later on in this show. And that's about folk healing and folk cures. And anybody who's from Ireland who's listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about. For anybody else who thinks like, what is she talking about? Is she talking about like medicine man, or what is it? I pulled a little definition just to get us started off, and it's from a book called Folk Healing and Healthcare Practices in Britain and Ireland. It's sort of a broad definition. It's the folk healer may refer to persons who have acquired or have learnt about curative powers, medical or healing knowledge from experts, kin or local practitioners. Various titles commonly assigned to practitioners have included, but are not exclusive to, cunning man, wise woman, witch, witch doctor, shaman, medicine men, spirit healers, and more. So folk medicine or healing may involve a singular act or a combination of curative skills or healing knowledge. And that really applies to my experience of it. But I think, Emily, you had looked into some origins and some different like cultural sort of interpretations of the same thing, right?
Yeah, I have a definition too from Encyclopedia Britannica, but it's pretty similar to yours. A medicine person, man, woman, they, them, anybody who practices medicine, is a person who is a member of indigenous society who is knowledgeable about the magical and chemical potencies of various substances, in parentheses, medicines, and skilled in the rituals through which they are administered. Most people associate the term medicine man with Native Americans, but they're also found in like basically any other culture. The process of becoming a medicine man, woman, person is different across the board. It could involve intense initiation processes, firsthand learning, such as an apprenticeship, or this is something that could be just passed down within a family. So if you're like a medicine woman, or a folk healer, you have a daughter, and then you basically just like teach your daughter as they're growing up, and they kind of become like the local folk healer. Also from Encyclopedia Britannica, the medicine person commonly carries a kit of objects: feathers of particular birds, suggestively shaped or marked stones, pollen, hallucinogenic or medicinal plants, and other items that are associated with healing. In some cases, these materials are considered to have been drawn out of the body of the practitioner at his or her initiation to the healer arts. Correspondingly, the work of healing often involves the extraction of offending substances from the patient's body by sucking, pulling, or other means. In some cases, an object must be physically removed from the patient. Example, the healer removes a projectile from a wound. In cases where the nature of the offending substance is metaphysical, however, the healing ritual focuses on achieving mental and spiritual health. In such cases, a symbolic object may be removed from the patient by sleight of hand.
Yeah, that's so all encompassing. It's funny actually. You just kind of like reminded me when you were talking about like the training and how people learn things in like the Irish schools curriculum. We learn a lot about the Celts, a lot.
Yeah.
But one of the things I remember is like, you know, in like Celtic society, the druid, that would be like their priest or their healing man.
Yeah.
And like there's modern day druids now in like New Age religions. I know that like, you know the way all these facts that you randomly remember from like when you were like 8 for some reason and you get hyperfixated on
right.
something.
I can remember facts from when I was 6, but I cannot remember what happened 2 days ago.
Yeah, like don't ask me what I had for breakfast last week.
Right.
At all. Jesus. But one of the facts that I always remember is to become a druid in certain societies, it took 20 years to complete your training.
Wow.
And when you think what the life expectancy was back then, you probably only lived to be about 35.
Yeah, you croaked right after you were done.
Yeah, you're like, yay, I'm done. Oh, shit.
Right.
Or it's like, you know, the old wise man was like somebody who was 40.
Yeah, right.
It's like, this is old man Pat.
Yeah.
Like, he's the oldest man in the village. Okay, he's 40.
Yeah,
right?
and now people are like having their first child at age 40 and like going to college, getting their career started.
Yeah, it's like finally getting off like your parents, like phone plan or something when you're 40.
I have moved out of my parents' house. I'm ready to start my life.
Yeah, I'm finally a big girl.
I just think it's really interesting because it reminded me that folk healing, it does deal with like plants and herbs and things that have medicinal properties, but it also is a spiritual thing.
There always seems to be some sort of like spiritual or like religious element.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like half Swedish. I did the ancestry DNA thing, even though I already kind of knew it, just because my mom's dad, so my paternal grandfather, his family was like super Swedish, like you could tell. They settled in the US, married off to Swedes, and they just like really stayed Swedish.
Yeah, they embraced the whole like heritage thing.
Yeah, they're like, give me the orange horse, the dollar horse. But So I've been researching Swedish folk healing, which I haven't found a ton about. A lot of Swedish people believe that gnomes are responsible for illness and injury. Usually people who live on farms. If something goes wrong, they'll think that they've displeased the gnomes. And I think that's super interesting. Like there's a specific gnome called the Tomta. It's like a type of gnome. And they basically make offerings to this gnome as though it's Santa Claus. Like on Christmas Eve, they'll put out rice pudding for him. And like if your cow falls ill or there's an injury to your horse or something like that, the Tomta's to blame. So they try to make him as happy as possible.
Yeah, it's like you gotta appease them. They're like tiny little vengeful gods, really. You just gotta, yeah, keep them happy. No, there's definitely so much of that in Irish folklore. In like, even, I would say, even like going back maybe 1 generation, 2 generations, there are people who full on believe, especially in the regions of Ireland where they still speak Irish, there is still obviously a very close relationship with the land. It's mostly in rural areas.
Yeah.
You know, people obviously who live very modern, but like they might have like a next door neighbor who has like all of these suspicions about fairies. Actually, the very first legal internship that I had, like I work in like the legal profession.
I was gonna say a legal internship. Were you doing illegal internships?
Yeah, I was like, how do I describe this? But yeah, it was in like a small like full service firm, and obviously, like in the break room, like you kind of just chat about like different calls that come in during the day. And like one of the solicitors was saying that she had like a woman come in, and the woman was like maybe 60s, and she wanted to sell her house and like some of the surrounding land around it. And like notoriously, like conveyances, like selling any land just takes months and months. It takes longer than most people would think, and it's all this headache. But like she kept saying that she needed it done quickly, and she needed it done like I would have done this like in like say it was March of the year, and she wanted it done before the summer.
Okay.
She kept saying this, and like the solicitor kept saying, right, well, it's not feasible that like you can have all of this done within the next couple of months. Like you need to give it time, because you know you're dealing with different solicitors and all of this paperwork. But like this woman was adamant, and the solicitor was like, what is the rush? Like, why do you need to sell it? Is somebody pressuring you? Like, do you have family members that are pressuring you for money or anything?
Are there gangs after you? Is the mob after you?
Yeah. Yeah. The woman like fully straight face said, no, there are fairy folk on my land and I need to get rid of it.
Wow.
And she was absolutely full on like compos mentis. Other than what she said, she was completely like with it. Didn't seem like she was crazy or anything like that, but it's just the belief is so like deep in people.
Yeah.
Especially in places like that.
Right.
That she fully was up for selling her house because she believed there was little folk on her land, and that they were somehow going to be annoyed if she didn't get off the land soon. So in fairness, she was about to pass it off to somebody else.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, so you're just trying to pawn it off on someone else?
Like, what the hell?
It's kind of rude.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff, the whole vengeance thing, like a lot of the ways that like you're talking about like cattle or maybe spoiling milk or spoiling crops, bringing it back to the healing aspect, they call them fairy blights.
Yeah.
Or I think I had shown you like they would call them a fairy pox.
Yeah.
There was actually a little quote that I had in the Scottish Highlands: if a fairy breathed upon a person, they may get covered in huge blisters.
Oh no.
And a lesser version of the symptoms could be just hives, like an allergic reaction, and it was known in the region as a fairy pox or a vrech she. So she is like the Irish or Gaelic word of fairy.
Yeah.
So that's where like banshee comes from.
Oh, okay. Man, I feel like there's fairies in my room because randomly I'll wake up with hives.
Yeah.
They're breathing on
and
me.
It's like, back in the day, you didn't have bed bugs. It was obviously just fairies biting you in your sleep.
Right. While we laugh,
I was like,
this is like, you know, I think we both recognize that this is, people, you know, really full-heartedly believe in this. And that's,
yeah,
we're not making fun of the belief, I guess. It's just like,
yeah.
I think like we love it, but also have like a sort of skepticism.
Yeah,
And
like a healthy skepticism.
Yeah.
I think. And yeah, it's not to like disrespect any beliefs, because like, you know, there are plenty of cultures around the world who have like healers and medicine men and all of that. But I think it's really fascinating to see how cultures explain things that are a little bit beyond their comprehension.
For sure.
As history has come on, like, you know, it could be strange illness and, oh, it's fairies. Or, like, your child could be born with behavioural problems. Oh, they were stolen away by fairies and that's not really your child, which is, you know, quite a sad way to look at things. But
Very
I mean,
much
that's
so.
where the whole changeling myth comes from, you know?
Right.
Like, it's, you know, your child is being replaced by a fairy child.
I know, like, within my research and stuff like that, it said that a lot of folk medicine is still used today. But, you know, like, I'm somebody who lives in Chicago. There's millions of people here. I can go down the street and go to the doctor. So I'm not really going to be the type of person who believes in this stuff. But a lot of people who still will approach folk healers are people who live in rural areas. Wow, that's hard to say. You know, they don't have access to modern medicine the way somebody like I do.
So, yeah, like, actually, on the point of having access to medicine, or even, you know, modern medicine isn't perfect. It's changing all the time. Like, any doctor will tell you, they have to keep on top of developments, keep on top of, you know, drug discoveries, drug trials, side effects,
Right.
everything.
Yeah, science
think of.
science is always changing.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like, that's why we have scientists to, like, test these things out, and you need somebody who is a lot more knowledgeable than I am or you are.
Right.
Like,
We no longer do bloodletting, so
yeah. Well, we're all very happy about that.
I hate leeches, so that's nice.
But I think a lot of people turn to well, natural remedies, which, you know, we could go down a whole rabbit hole of granola mom natural remedy route. But I think when people are not finding the answers that they were maybe hoping for from Western medicine, that's when they might turn to something natural, or something that's like could be classed as under the definition that we have covered, like the folk remedy.
For sure.
So
Well, I also think that it's at least for me, I try to do a blend of Western medicine and, you know, not really like folk healing, but like a lot of people refer to it as like Eastern medicine, things like acupuncture and you know, consuming specific herbs or specific teas to try to help, because I do think there is, you know, we can't just be taking prescription pills for everything.
Oh yeah, no, 100% agree.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like on a personal note, my grandfather, so my mother's father, was I guess you could class him as a folk healer, but his was deeply rooted in Catholicism, which is, in Ireland especially, the way that folk healing has evolved over the years. It went from something that maybe your village druid went to or was able to do or had inherited, to something that was rooted in religion, the way people believed about it.
Yeah.
Believed in it. So my grandfather had the cure for oral thrush, and he was somebody who administered this to people. And I actually asked my mum about it, because it's one of those things, I think especially when you're an adult, you realize that there's stuff that you sort of half know and that you've never really asked about, and you're sort of expected to know about, or that you picked up half the story when you were a kid.
Right.
So I asked Mum to send me a voice clip on it. Now, full disclosure, I'm pretty sure in true Irish mammy fashion, she wrote this out to read it out.
I love it.
Because she couldn't have just winged it. But God love her, she wasn't going to be embarrassed on a podcast that maybe 2 people will listen to.
Yeah. I don't want to be embarrassed
So,
either, but...
Yeah. So this is my mum, Jean. You can call her Mommy Jean. Lots of people do.
Hello, Mommy Jean.
Mommy Jean.
My father was born in 1910. He never saw his own father, who had died in an accident 3 months before he was born. I can't recollect how my father knew that as a result of them never meeting, he would have a cure for thrush. Many people came to our home over the years with their children for the cure. There had to be 3 visits over 3 days. Dad breathed in the child's mouth and said a prayer each time. He made a sign of the cross on the child's forehead after he prayed. No money ever exchanged hands for the cure. I had first experience of my dad curing one of my own children. I had taken my son to the doctor, and he was prescribed fungal drops for a week, which didn't cure the problem. The doctor then suggested the old cure of gentian violet in the mouth, which didn't work either. My son, who was 3 or 4 years old at the time, wasn't eating, his mouth was so painful. So as a last resort, I took him to my father. After the first part of the cure was done, my son started eating that same evening. I had never really believed in the cure until then.
Yeah, that's a woman who worked in pharmacies her entire life. Like, my mum was always the person, we didn't have any doctors or nurses in the family.
Yeah.
But she was always the person who, like, my relatives would go to her, like, she'd get a random call at night saying, like, oh, like, I have whatever wrong with me, do you have anything for it? Because we had the best stocked medicine cabinet that anybody could ever have. So, like, my mum is a huge believer in Western medicine. She is very knowledgeable about Western medicine. Like, even now, like, I'll usually ask her before I go to a doctor.
Yeah.
Because if I can avoid going to a doctor, I will. So she'll be able to tell me if there's something I can get over the counter.
Yeah.
You heard her say herself, like, she didn't really believe in it. And I could understand, like, the process. Like, that sounds... I didn't know about that he had to breathe in the child's mouth.
Which,
you know, there's a lot of
like...
trust. There's a lot of trust letting a strange man breathe in your child's mouth.
Right. Especially when it's like, I don't know. I would be like, have you just brushed your teeth? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if I want your stinky breath in my mouth.
And when you think, like, you're in so much pain, and obviously, you know, it was children and adults and anybody who'd, like, been on a course of antibiotics and was suffering from thrush, were coming. So it was, obviously, you were in so much pain, and then you had to do this, and you'd, like, come back three times, like, come back 2 more times after the initial visit.
Yeah.
So it shows, like, how, I don't know, is it a combination of desperation and belief, or is it mostly belief? I don't know, but I think it's fascinating. Like, I think it's crazy that it's worked.
Yeah.
And that it worked for as many people as my grandfather helped, because even, like, he's been dead for years. Even now, like, some people will say, like, my grandfather was basically known for 2 things. He drove a taxi, and he had the cure for thrush. And, like, people will still say to my mum, oh yeah, his name was Dinny. It's like a nickname for Dennis.
Okay.
Like, oh yeah, Dinny had the cure for thrush.
He'll breathe in your mouth and he'll drive you home.
Yeah, it's like he can come pick you up as well. It's great. So I guess probably actually the story that really got us talking about, like, folk healing and everything in the first place was my own story. My mother clearly had been convinced by taking my brother to get the cure for thrush, because years later, when I'm the youngest of, like, her 3 kids, years later when I got an attack of warts for some reason on my hands, the only explanation I have is being a nasty, nasty child.
You were just playing with a lot of frogs.
Yeah, or somebody tried to tell me it was from kissing boys, and I was like, absolutely not.
Haven't kissed one boy, thank you.
Yeah. And if they give me warts, then never again.
Right.
But yeah, I got, like, this weird outbreak of warts on my hands, and, like, I don't know what the current treatment for warts is. I'm lucky enough that I don't have to know. The only way to get rid of them was to get them frozen off by, I guess it's like a salicylic acid or something.
Yeah, it's like a liquid nitrogen. I had to have that when I was a kid, and it was terrible.
Yeah, like, I can only imagine how painful it must be.
Yeah.
That was sort of the cure medically at the time, but I was a little kid and my hands were covered in, I always remember the number, 26 warts. And they were basically, like, on the joints of all of my fingers, all over the backs of my hands, just randomly everywhere. There was no getting rid of them, and it would have been extremely painful for me as, like, a 4 or 5-year-old going to get them all frozen off individually in the doctor's office. So
yeah, that would have been awful.
Yeah, and it definitely would have put me off doctors, like,
For sure.
even more so. I'm not, like, it's not that I'm a huge fan of doctors, I just hate going to a doctor's office, because you're like, oh, I gotta, like, talk about myself, and...
Right, and then they poke around, and it's just like, can you leave me alone?
Have you tried not being a woman?
Yeah. It's like, do you ever eat M&Ms? It's like, yes. You should probably stop.
Yeah. But anyway, So in an effort to avoid traumatizing me and bringing me to a doctor's office, a friend of my mum's, her son had a wart. I actually think his wart was on his eye.
Oh gosh.
Like on his
eyelid?
on his eyelid. Yeah, and he wasn't that much older than me at the time. He had gotten rid of it by bringing him someone like just over the border in Northern Ireland. I live in the northwest of Ireland. This man who had somehow got the cure for warts. I don't know how he had inherited it. You'll have heard my mum say that my grandfather inherited it because he never laid eyes on his own father. There's usually some like semi-romantic way of like saying that the person inherited it, or else their seventh son of a seventh son, or something like that. Yeah. It's never just, it's just Jimmy. He's a bit weird and he started breathing on people. And
he started saying, open your mouth. I'm going to breathe in it.
Yeah. Guess what? Your thrush is gone. I didn't have thrush.
Exactly. It's magic.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
But, so this man had, like, apparently cured, like, my... Did you hear that?
Cats?
No. Oh, well, probably. Some sort of crash in their house. Probably cats.
I don't know if you can hear, but my cat is right outside my door, and she keeps being like, meow.
No, I can't hear.
She's like, will you please let me in?
This is like, I can hear you talking in there without me.
You're laughing.
Are you lying down? Because you know you only lie down with me. It's like, you better not be sleeping. So yeah, this man had like apparently cured my mother's friend's son of like this wart on his eye. So mum was like, yeah, I'll bring Neve. So she brought me, and my memories of it were that we went to this person's house. It was obviously like just given like specific directions. I think the daughter of... We had somebody bringing us there, so it was like the daughter of the woman who had told my mum about this. Okay. Like, so the little boy's sister, who was like a good bit older than him, she was like an adult at the time, brought us to this place, because I think she actually had like a wart on her finger or something she wanted to get rid of. And I was brought into this man's living room, and it was just me and him. My mum was asked to leave for whatever reason. Must be part of the ritual. Who knows? Once again, a lot of trust here. Right. It was the 90s. Yeah. What is the 90s?
I would have never left my daughter with a strange man. But that's just me.
Yeah. And I remember this guy had like a green marker, and I remember him putting like a dot on each wart on my hand. And then he wrote the number 26 on his own hand and drew a circle around it. And he told me that when I was saying my prayers before bed that night, this is back when I said prayers before bed, because, you know, I wanted to make a good Holy Communion and get lots of Monday. That's it. That's your motivation.
Right.
Like, I say prayers.
I say prayers. Can I have money?
So, yeah, he told me that ask for my warts to go away when I was saying my prayers that night, and he would ask for the same thing. I would be in his prayers. Okay. And that they would be gone, and I shit you not, within about 10 days my warts were gone. They were just completely disappeared. I think I was maybe left with like just one, which like faded away genuinely, like just over time, like, but like the majority of them gone within 10 days. And
that's pretty wild.
Did nothing else. Yeah, we did nothing but this cure. Like that's the only thing that we did. My mum didn't like put anything on me. We didn't change the way, like, I wash my hands or anything like that. Not that I don't think you could get rid of warts by just washing your hands or anything like
right.
that. But, and I'm a very skeptical person. I kind of wish I believed in things more.
Yeah, that's...
Like Emily and I discussed.
That's the same. I'm like, I wish I believed way more.
I just wish, but, like, your logical brain just kicks in.
It's probably because we're Capricorns.
Yeah, because we're Capricorns and we don't believe in that stuff, which makes us Capricorns.
For all the astrology buffs out there.
Yeah, going, oh my God, they're such Capricorns.
Yeah. If you haven't figured out through this whole... Because I don't think we said we had January birthdays.
Yeah, it could be after. Isn't it like the 20th of January? Or they changed all those dates, didn't they? They changed the dates.
Did they?
I feel like they did a few years back.
I don't know that.
I think like maybe like a day here and there.
I think it is the 20th of January though, because my husband is the 19th of January, and somebody was like, "Ooh, he's on the cusp," and I'm like, "What? What does that mean?"
I know, it's such a way of explaining away, going like, oh yeah, like I'm a whatever, but I'm totally on the cusp, so I'm actually more like the other thing. So you're not like either of them, is what you're saying.
Right.
You're just making it up. Oh God, I wish I believed in this. It would be so great if I could be like, and some of my friends do, and like more power to them.
Yeah.
But it would be so cool to have like some sort of guiding force to go like, yeah, you don't have to get out of bed today because your day is going to be absolute shite.
For sure. Don't walk through a graveyard today. Cool. I won't do that.
Yeah, like I wish I could explain why the cure worked, but my warts are gone, guys. I have no warts. Wart free since '93.
Wart free Neve.
Yeah. That's my claim to fame now. So like I don't know if anybody else knows how you can explain it. I would love to hear it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I would love to hear both. I want to hear from the scientists, and I want to hear from the people who are like 110% believers.
I would love to hear more stories as well of people like having these experiences, like
Yeah, for sure.
like healing experiences. I would love to believe it, but I'm sure there are some scientific explanations.
Yeah.
Is it like power of the mind?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Psychosomatic.
Yeah, I was gonna
healing?
say maybe we need to believe more because, well, we had talked about placebos before, but it's kind of like, in a lot of placebo studies, the placebo is just as effective, if not more, and that's, I think there's something to be said about that. It's kind of like if you believe, it'll probably work. So
Yeah.
and I have to kind of close out the show, I have there's a book called Traditional Magic Spells for Protection and Healing. It's by Claude Lecotier. I'm not French. We could post it in the show notes. We got to mention show notes in the first show.
Yes.
But this is a ritual to help for toothaches, and it is from a Transylvanian journal in the 19th century. The toothache sufferer should wrap a stone with a blade of barley straw and toss it into running water while saying, "Pain, oh pain in my tooth, do not attack me so. Remove yourself, leave me, my dog is not home. Do not visit me, since I curse you constantly. Follow this straw in the torrent, follow it peacefully." So if you have a toothache, that'll fix you.
Oh yeah, like easy fix. Here, to be fair, that's probably easier than trying to get an appointment with the dentist these days.
Probably. It's worth a shot because you're going to probably wait months anyway.
Yeah, you could literally be like, my jaw is falling off, and they're like, the earliest we can get you in is next Tuesday, maybe.
Right.
Put you on a cancellation list, pet. Like, how do you sound so chipper? I'm in so much pain.
I know.
Yeah, so maybe that's why we need to look into natural remedies and
Yeah, we should.
and healing and folk remedies.
Yeah. With doing the podcast, we should make our other sort of project be learning how to believe.
Learning how to believe,
become
yeah.
believers.
Yeah, I mean, we start out with like making tea to calm down. I mean, that's definitely actually does work for me. So
Right. Yeah, I drink sleepy time tea and it works.
yeah, it's the best.
So we started as skeptics, and I would say 2%, I believe, at this point.
Yeah, we're wannabe believers.
Yeah. And also, if anybody has any stories or anything they want to share with us, our email address is rowanandpinepod@gmail.com. Again, rowanandpinepod@gmail.com.
Right. So yeah, that was our first episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope our personalities are not too abrasive.
For sure.
Because you all know what that's like.
Yeah.
When you start a podcast, you're like, oh my god, these bitches.
Hopefully you come back for the second episode. And maybe the third.
Which is, yeah, a little bit to be determined, but we definitely have a lot of ideas. Emily grew up in a haunted house.
I
So
did.
if you want to hear more about
Yes. I forget about that until haunted houses come up. I'm like, oh, that's right. That was a huge part of my life.
that. Yeah. I went through a very serious werewolf phase at one point.
Amazing.
Which is probably at an age which I would be embarrassed to tell people. But yeah, I can share that later on because there are werewolves everywhere. Werewolves on like culture all around the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, werewolves and changelings and hauntings, oh my.
And Yetis.
And Yetis.
I'm so into like Bigfoot and Yetis. You have no idea.
Yes. Cryptids.
Fuck yeah, cryptids.
Fuck yeah, cryptids.
But yeah, that was...
Fuck yeah, folklore.
Yes. That should be our sign-off.
That can be our sign-off. So I've been Neve.
I'm Emily.
And fuck yeah, folklore.
Fuck yeah, folklore. Keep folking on.
Keep fucking on.
And check our second episode whenever that comes out.
Bye, guys.
Bye.